Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It's Hector Aguilar of Aguilar Realty Group. Wanted to thank you once again for joining us this week for this week's topic. And this week I chose a topic that is a little difficult to talk about, but nonetheless, it's a big part of our market, and that is getting a divorce, right? So, divorce. It's not the easiest subject to talk about. I realize that. Typically, when divorce is being considered by a couple, there's many reasons why that divorce has been discussed or being discussed, or maybe they're in the middle of getting started with that, right? And today I wanted to talk a little bit about if you own real estate assets in a divorce, maybe talk a little bit of some of your options. Number one of the first options is, do you want to remain in the home, right? I guess the second question to that would be, are you prepared to qualify to maybe buy out your partner or your ex spouse to be? That's a consideration that you would think about. Or if it's not a consideration and maybe you don't qualify to buy him out or to refinance the property to keep it and again buy him out or him or her out, is the last option to sell and move on. All three are difficult questions to ask, but certainly in a divorce, those are questions you have to consider, right? First of all, I wanted to start by saying that, of course, I'm not a divorce attorney or an attorney at all. I don't practice law. I'm a real estate agent licensed in the state of California to do just that, is assist buyers and sellers to buy property and sell property. So with that said, I just wanted to kind of give you a couple of tips about divorce and how the state of California sees that, and maybe talk a little bit about some of the options that you might have in order to consider when you're talking about divorce and there's real estate assets involved in a divorce. Number one, as you know, the state of California is a community state property, right? What does that mean? It basically means that most times the assets and debts will be split equally, 50-50. It goes back to an old law based on Spanish law. And that's what community property would be, whether it's a mortgage, cars, bank accounts, even debt, it's going to be split up 50-50. Now, occasionally you'll see what's called an equitable distribution, right? And typically that's decided by the judge or the attorney or even the mediators, but it's typically defined as a fair, not necessarily equal distribution of those assets. So occasionally you might get an equitable distribution. Okay, now if you wanted to keep your home, I would recommend as a house spouse, which it's called, it's a person who wants to remain in the home and keep it, to do some house homework, right? You need to consider a couple things, right? What is part of your planning when it comes to your house homework is, number one, what's the current mortgage statement? Like, what's the balance? Let's get a mortgage statement and find out how much do you owe against the property. You have to consider, are there any home equity lines of credit that are owed against the property as well that could affect your bottom line, right? Or that you would have to consider in order to keep the home and stay in the home, right? Because ultimately, I want to say a high percentage of the time, there's a spouse that's going to leave and the spouse that's going to stay. And in some cases, neither one will stay and they'll sell the house and move on. But you do have to do your house homework, right? Make sure that everything that's recorded against the property is considered when either refinancing to buy the spouse out or to sell as well. Have you considered any other liens against the property, whether there's PACE loans or HERO loans? Typically, these are loans that are filed, or liens, pardon me, that are filed against the property when home improvements are done through some of these programs. It could be a roof, it could be air conditioning, it could be plumbing, or a remodel to a kitchen, or any various number of items that are covered by either PACE or HERO. So you want to make sure that you do your research as to what's owed against those, right? Typically there's a balance, and in most cases your taxes will go up too, so it impacts your taxes when you have those type of programs. So one of the things that you might want to consider too is, have there been any claims against the property, any insurance claim? Was there a recent plumbing issue? Was there a flooding issue, or maybe like the roof that was an issue? Anything that affects the insurability of the property is something that you probably want to consider as well. And it's called the CLUE report. It's a report that you can actually request from your homeowner's insurance so that you have some information as to the condition of the property, right? You might want to even consider, speaking of house condition, you want to see if maybe you want to order a physical inspection. If you're going to plan on staying on the home, it would probably be a good idea to understand what the condition of the home is. So if there's repairs to be made, that you and your attorney might be able to negotiate that as far as your equitable distribution or your the 50-50 split, right? So it's always important to find out what the condition of the home is if you're planning to stay, right? And I guess one of the most important things is also to consider what's the current market value of the home. Now, in this current market, the value might be, you know, excessive in the sense that, you know, you have clients or buyers that are out there looking in the market that are offering above asking price right now because there's not enough inventory in the market. But, you know, it's important to know what is the property worth, right? Ultimately, you're going to want to get a current market evaluation of the property. The court might even request an actual appraisal to be done on the property. That's something that your attorney might be able to help you with, but certainly real estate professionals like myself or a mortgage banker might be able to get an appraisal for your property as well. And, you know, if keeping the house is not an option because either you can't afford it or you just want to sever ties and move on and not have any emotional ties to the property, and you just kind of want to start a new chapter in your life, then you gotta decide to sell the house. You have to look at it as a business transaction. You have to detach as much as, you know, the memories that you have in the home, and as hard it is for you to think about all the events that have happened there. When it comes to the sale of the house, it's just business, right? The attorneys will negotiate. If it gets to court, which most cases do, the judge is going to award, again, community property or an equitable distribution. And it's important to understand that it's not a personal thing. It's just business, and it makes the sale of the property a lot faster and a lot easier. Ultimately, your goal, if it is to sell the property and to move on, is to gain financial freedom from the house and from your former spouse, right? To start anew chapter in your life, to detach from that particular marriage in the quickest, most respectable way as possible, and start a new life. You know, like I said, divorce is not typically something that we all look into as far as when we first get married, but it certainly is a part of our business. It's a part of our lives. You know, the percentage of divorces these days are well in excess of 50% for most marriages. So when you have real estate involved, you know, you should at least know your options. And finally, you know, if you're looking for assistance to determine whether or not you can keep the home or whether or not you need to sell the home, you know, I've earned a designation through a professor, Professor Kelly, who's a graduate of Stanford and Harvard Law. This particular education has given me the ability to sit with a spouse and determine, you know, if it's possible for them to keep the house. Does it make financial sense to keep the house? I can help you gather documentation on the property, you know, liens, judgments, get a preliminary title report, even get an appraisal to go out and do an appraisal on the property that they can present to court. And that's given me that opportunity to serve the majority of the market in divorce. And I've also worked with attorneys. So if you're looking for an attorney, I can certainly refer you to a few attorneys in my markets that I serve and be able to help you move on with your divorce. I wanted to thank you for your time. I know that divorce is not typically a theme that is a happy theme to discuss, but certainly, like I said before, it's part of our market. I've been blessed with the opportunity of helping some divorced couples over the last couple of years, and yes, sometimes it's a little tough, but you know, praise God, there's always a you know, a light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to divorce. And again, your goal should always be to gain financial freedom and also be able to start your new chapter in your life. So once again, this week's topic was divorce. I hope that you don't find yourself in that situation, but if you do, and you have any further questions, would love an opportunity to sit with you and discuss what your options are. Once again, my name is Hector Aguilar. I wanted to thank you for taking the time to spend with me every Wednesday. Again, we'll be together next Wednesday, once again, with the new topic, and I look forward to bringing some value-added information to you in your life as well. Have a wonderful day. And once again, my name is Hector Aguilar with Aguilar Realty Group, brokered by EXP. We look forward to talking to you soon. Take care.